Welcome to the Wealth Done Differently Retirement Podcast. Danielle Howard, a certified financial planner, shares insight into the financial tools, techniques, and temperaments needed to make the most of your retirement dollars and relationships. Danielle bridges the gap between Wall Street and Main Street, bringing complex financial topics down to earth. Danielle will educate and inspire you as you define and refine your version of prosperity.
Hello and welcome to Wealth Done Differently Retirement with Danielle Howard, a certified financial planner. Today we're going to be talking about the Secure Act and how it may impact you. So the very first question is, besides, good morning, Danielle, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Eric.
We'll start with that one. But the second question, mind you, is, Danielle, what is the Secure Act?
Well, it is legislation that is going through the process of being put into law. It is the Secure Act. It's setting every community up for retirement enhancement. It's Act 2019 was created by the Ways and Means Committee. It has passed the House, voted 417 to 3, so passed with flying colors, and it's now sitting on the Senate's desk. And we're looking at changes that could possibly go into effect December 31st of this year.
Well, that's moving quick then, possibly.
Yes. Yeah, so we're in summer and we're focused on growth, and I think it's really important that as we're looking at our mindsets around abundance and gratitude and intentional opportunities to grow, that we understand what is changing in public policy and how it will impact, the decisions that we need to make in our own personal financial lives as it moves forward. We're just kind of getting used to the tax law changes that took place in 2018. People looked at their tax returns and gone, oh my goodness, this really worked well for me, or maybe there's some things I need to change to have it enhance what stays in my pocket. And I think this potentially has the opportunity to impact people both for the positive, and we'll string this along for 2 podcasts, and maybe even negatively, as we'll address in our next podcast.
So Danielle, what is the goal for today's podcast and as part 1?
We're going to glean some insight about this new season of life and how these tax laws are going to impact you. But my goal with these podcasts is to dig into some financial technical pieces and delve into quality of life in this retirement season. And I want to make sure that people who are listening don't take any of this personally, literally. I think your financial and life situation is so unique that you should have an advisor get to know you really well before you make any decisions on what to do with financial tools, or how, especially what we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks may impact you and impact what you've built up over your lifetime. So with that in mind, let's dive into what the Secure Act is going to do for folks, or has the potential to do for folks.
All right, class is in session and I'm listening. Where do we start?
Well, we're going to start with our changing demographics. One of the things I really focus on is that, retirement is changing and people are living longer. There's a lot of research that has been done around the preparedness for the traditional retirement, that idea of, okay, we're going to retire at 62 or at 65. And most people are inadequately prepared for that. April 2019, a report from the Insured Retirement Institute says that more than 4 in 10 baby boomers believe that Medicare is going to cover their long-term costs. And only 55% of boomers have any money saved for that season of life called retirement. It's just really scary.
That's crazy.
Yeah, almost half of that, 45%, do not have any retirement savings at all. So, the numbers out there are pretty scary. 6 in 10 boomers have taken no action with their workplace defined contribution plans, or only 23% of boomers age 56 to 61 expect to receive income from a private pension plan where they work. I don't like to really focus on these statistics because it can put that element of the fear of God into you,
Hmm.
which if that's what it takes to motivate you to think about what do I need to save for my future, then so be it. But I also feel that, again, our traditional retirement is changing, and the whole way people are going to be taking money is changing, and what they need in retirement is changing. And so, again, we could look at the traditional retirement out there, or we can look at a new season of life called rewirement and what it means to have a positive mindset around this season and using your financial resources wisely as we head into that. And that again is my choice to look at it a little bit differently. We know people are living longer. I call it
Hmm.
that, second adulthood. It isn't that, 5 to 7 years of collecting a Social Security check, sitting on the porch and knitting or working in the garden. People are
Hmm.
active, and we want to look at these statistics and say they can either scare you or empower you. So, looking at the reality of what financial means you have to create your version of prosperity, I truly believe is going to open doors and help you move into this new season with zest and vigor. I think that personal awareness of what's going on, whether it's in legislation or in your personal accounts, what's going on in tax environments, and again with these policy rules and regulations will help you discern direction.
Hmm. There's a phrase, don't become a statistic. But here's the thing is if a statistic says 9 out of 10 people are going to pass away from a disease or cancer or heart failure or whatever, nobody wants to be part of that statistic. But the 1 out of 10 who die peacefully in their sleep at 100 years old or whatever, surrounded by family and success, that's also a statistic. We want to be part of positive things. But again, like you've said before, so much of the media, so much of the environment that we live in focuses on negative statistics. And I think that truly can be a positive tool if that negative statistic makes you think, I don't want to be part of that one. I don't want to be part of the 9 out of 10. I want to be part of the 1 out of 10.
Perfect. Yes, exactly. As we look at what is changing, we're seeing more Americans working into their 70s, whether it's
Hmm.
by choice or necessity. And according to the U.S. Census Bureau, over the past 20 years, it's raised to nearly 15% of Americans are now working into their 70s, and
Wow.
it's in my mind, it's a good thing. It is the idea. It's not. You don't need to focus on whether you need the money or not, but you're staying engaged. And with research showing that, whether it's quitting a career and how that leads to isolation or loneliness, especially in men, and that many college educated workers are choosing to stay in the labor force, to stay, engaged and have those social benefits. And so, as we look at what's changing with this legislation, how can we take advantage of some of these pieces? Let's take a look at the first thing that is happening. They are looking at repealing the age for contributions to your IRA, whether it is a traditional or Roth. Right now, at age 70 and a half, you can no longer contribute, no matter if
Hmm.
you're working or not. And the maximum you can get into it is $7,000 if you're over 50. And if you're under 50, you can get $6,000 a year into it. So, most people, they hit that age 70 and a half and they're still working, but you can't put money into an IRA anymore. This is going to change. They're looking at repealing that age limitation. So if you're continuing to work, you can continue to contribute to that traditional IRA or Roth IRA, depending on what your income levels are and what you're trying to accomplish tax wise, both now and down the road. So, as long as you have W 2 income, you're going to be able to contribute. You would also be able to contribute right now. You can contribute for a spousal,
Hmm.
even if they don't have that earned income. Many people don't know that if your spouse isn't working, you can put money aside in an IRA for them. And that will increase, again, that age repeal is going away. If you continue to work after age 70, you can continue to make your personal IRA contributions as well as spousal contributions, which is big. If there's folks out there that, want to continue to build up that tax deferred bucket of money, whether it's in an employer sponsored plan or in their own, this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, that definitely sounds like good news.
Yes. The hard thing is if you haven't been a saver, turning 70 and a half is not going to change your habits or your behavior.
Yeah, true.
So I think people need to address some of the behavior issues and creating that intentional spending plan in order to be able to take advantage of the fact that you can contribute for a longer amount of time into your IRAs if you're just getting the ball rolling with that. Another piece that is going to be changing is that they are going to shift that required minimum distribution age. Right now, you've got that 70 and a half, and it's just a bizarre calculation. It's the April 15th following your 70 and a half birthday. A bit convoluted.
Well, that hits me really quick because my birthday is April 12th, so I'm right there.
Oh my gosh.
It's an immediate thing, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
I got a few years to think about that.
Yeah, I think this could be either a win or a lose, depending on a specific situation. And next week, we're going to look at the downside of that. But today, let's look at the win side. Is basically they're going to increase it to age 72. And there's the Senate has a similar bill in the works. It's called the Retirement Enhancement Savings Act, known as RESA. So we're talking about Secure or RESA. And they're looking at pushing back the required minimum distribution age to 75. But for the Secure Act, it's age 72.
Got it. I mean, those are big differences. And if either one of them pass, that's a positive, right?
Well, it can be. Today, we're going to look at the win. I think there's some considerations that you need to make based on your situation and based on, what kind of tax environment we're in, et cetera. But right now, to look at the positive is that with the Secure Act, you could have an extra 18 months to contribute and get that tax deferred growth. Is that going to make a huge difference in your retirement security or extend the bucket of your IRA money a huge amount? Not necessarily, but again, it gives you a little bit more time. And if we're in a summer growth season in the economy, it could give you that potential for some tax deferred growth. They're going to, they're going to have to,
flexibility.
In Congress and the Senate, they're going to have to reconcile the two before any legislation is going to get sent to the president's desk. So which one of those play out? We'll continue to see that over our summer and fall this year.
All right. What else?
We're going to see some changes with defined contribution plans. Those are your employer-sponsored plans, your 401ks, 403bs, 457s, SEP simples, all of those. And this is an area that has been really an opportunity to create some change. And again, there's some positives. And as I'm looking at it, I think there's a few downsides, which again, we're going to address next week. But to start out with, they're going to have your employer contribution plan give you some disclosures. And that is similar to what you get from Social Security on an annual basis. Once you hit that, you either have to request it from Social Security or once you hit full retirement age, you get a copy of it in the mail, is that it shows you, given what you have in this bucket, this is your anticipated amount that you could receive for over a lifetime. So it kind of creates an annuitization picture of what you could expect to receive, which for many people would help them understand, what their spending capacity is going to, what are they going to have based on a certain age. I think one of the challenge with this is right now is going to be looking at the methodology that they're going to use for calculating that lifetime income. I know that that's still in the work, and all of the disclosures and informations on assumptions are going to have to be provided. But I think it potentially could give people a better insight as to what they could expect, the same way that they're looking at their Social Security reports.
Got it. All right.
Participation. This is an interesting one because I think, again, for many people, especially women who maybe have not been in the workforce, for a long time, or have been more in a part-time work situation where they've not qualified to participate in a employer-sponsored plan. This new legislation says that if you've worked at a company for at least 3 consecutive years and you work at least 500 hours a year, that your employer is going to allow you to participate in its defined contribution plan. And I think this, again, for folks that are moving into that fall season of life, they may not want to work or may not need to work full time. And they could work part-time, still have access to be able to contribute to a qualified program with their employer and continue to build up that nest egg for down the road.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic thing.
They are looking at permitting employers to auto-escalate, which means just kind of increase their employee contributions. Right now, the maximum that you can contribute to a plan is 10%. They're looking of your pay, and they're looking at being able to increase that up to 15%. Again, an opportunity to kind of engage and boost up your employer-sponsored plan.
Got it. Yeah, I think that any opportunity to save more, I think that's a positive thing. Yeah.
Sure.
Sure. We'll do that.
Yeah. If it's done, with intention. I love the idea that they're going to allow small employers to band together and participate in a retirement plan.
Nice.
Right now, according to the U.S. Small Business Administration, we have 28.8 million small businesses in the United States. 99.7 of all businesses. So many times we just think, oh, it's the Walmarts, the Facebooks, the Google, that those are the major employers. And yes, Walmart employs more people than anywhere else. But the bulk of employers out there, 56.8 million employees, are employed by small businesses. And many times, in order to, there's those economies of scale. And that's what many times, a chamber of commerce does, is come in and look at how to band small businesses together in order to get better deals on in our valley, we get better deals on skiing if we belong to the chamber. So to bring together, these employers and be able to sponsor a retirement plan and kind of maybe negate some of the costs. 401ks are really expensive and they're administrative heavy. Your simple plans they're simple. They're a lot less expensive, and determining what type of an employer sponsored plan is right for you is, again, very different based on what you're trying to accomplish, usually for the employer. But I think overall, it's encouraging people to come up with new ways to save. And I think, that overall is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. What else do we need to discuss about this?
Let's see. There's a tax credit for small employers to encourage that automatic enrollment into one of their retirement plans. So here's, again, a benefit for a small employer to offset some of the cost of starting those plans. A tax credit of $500. And tax credits are always a good thing on a tax return. They definitely weigh heavier than your deductions because it offsets what you're going to pay in taxes directly. I think, again, that idea of how do we encourage saving when we're looking at young people. Again, my focus is primarily on the pre-retirees, those within 5 years of retirement or heading into that fall season of life. And the earlier you start, the better. One of the things that will be changing is they've got penalty-free withdrawals from a employer-sponsored plan or your IRAs in the case of a birth or adoption. And I think the idea behind this one is to many times people don't save. Younger people won't save because they don't know if they're going to have enough money to cover, a birth or have enough money to see them through maternity leave. And for them to be able to, start saving early, knowing that right now they get penalized, 10% if they pull money out of their traditional IRA or your Roth IRA or your employer-sponsored plan. And if they remove that, then many people will, again, use those vehicles as tax-deferred savings opportunities.
Nice. Yeah. Again, giving some flexibility, it sounds like.
That's what it's all about. The more flexible we can be, the more options you have, the more you understand how any of these opportunities fit into your particular situation and can benefit you, I think is good stuff. The next one is, annuity opportunities, annuity options within employer-sponsored plans. This one is something we're going to really dig into next week. But again, we're going to look at potential positive side of it. Annuities are incredibly complex products and they're expensive. And the idea that they're going to update the safe harbor provisions for plan sponsors to be able to select annuity providers in order to offer, annuity plans inside of your 401ks. Right now, many companies stay away from them because they're complex. And I think that, the new rules are going to ease up this liability concern for companies. And, it's another opportunity to use a tool inside a retirement plan. Again, I'm on the fence as to whether this is a good one or a bad one. We'll play that out a little bit more.
Yeah, sounds like we got a lot to discuss next month.
It's a teaser. It's a teaser.
Yeah. There we go.
Something that doesn't have to do with retirement plans, but it has been incorporated into this new legislation is changed to the 529 plan. And 529s are the tools that people use to save for your education, your future education. And there were some changes made when we passed tax law that now allows people to use their 529 plans to up to $10,000 a year to go to, high school, private schools, or secondary education, not just your college. And now the Secure Act is going to allow families to take tax-free distributions for student loan repayment. This could be an interesting way of looking at your college funding to say, all right, you may want to allow a child, again, not too sure good or bad, but to take out loans initially if we're in a summer economic season and your accounts are still growing and you want to keep that tax sheltered growth. So you take some loans during college, you get out of college, you don't incur any interest on those loans until you finish school. As soon as you're finished, you've been able to grow the 529 a little bit more. Then you can take out, an aggregate lifetime limit of $10,000 to make a repayment on that loan. So there's some, tactical strategies that you could use around those 529s to take advantage of, depending on what kind of an economic season we're in and what life season you're in with those 529 plans.
Now, everything that you've discussed today so far has been really focusing on flexibility. It seems like they're trying to give people a little bit more flexibility, different ways to do things, better ways, possibly, maybe not so much better. And we'll talk about next time. But with all of these items, do you feel these policy changes will enhance or help people to see and make some changes in their behaviors, like you spoke about earlier, how much people save for their future? Do you think that's going to kind of force people to do it or really open their eyes, or no?
Yeah, I've never seen legislation that really helps people change their behavior. I truly think, it can be a motivator or a deterrent, but I think we have to look at our behavior in light of our vision for what true prosperity is in our own life, and then take advantage of whatever new legislation or tax rules come down the line in order to take advantage of them and use them for our benefit. And this is where I, come back to the qualitative side of people looking at what is important about creating their version of prosperity, their unique idea of what true wealth is, especially in this season of life. Usually I would think that this, legislation is going to help out people mostly who already have some good behavior and have built up some potential. And, we're going to continue to build on the wins. So the sooner people can take a look at what they're, where they're at in their long-term goal planning, in their, trying to address their needs around liquidity and lifestyle and longevity and legacy, and really know themselves, then I think, yes, there's elements of this legislation that could be really beneficial. The same thing with tax law changes. You can work them in your favor if you don't just kind of acquiesce to the status quo, and you are proactive instead of reactive in understanding what's best for your personal family situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, my goal is to plant some seeds to help people understand, what is out there, to encourage them to do some more homework, either learning about what's happening, whether it's this legislation, you have folks that that you can write letters to your representatives, you can get engaged in ways, whether it's around Secure Act or REMA, or what's going to be happening with Social Security changes or Medicare changes. I think people that again, it's that creating awareness of what is going on and how we need to be proactive in understanding how it's going to benefit us and how we need to use it to build on the wins.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Danielle, I know that we are running low on time for this podcast, and this is only part one, so I know we have got a lot for part two, but what do you have for closing thoughts for this podcast?
Well, entice people to join us next time. Not all of the Secure Act is leaving me feeling really secure, and we're going to discuss the downside and some of the components that you really need to consider as you look at planning for yourself and your family moving forward.
Gotcha. It sounds like we're going to be possibly going from the Secure Act to the Not Sure Act. Is that something like that for next podcast?
Sure.
All right. Yeah, we've got a lot to discuss, I'm sure. Danielle, and speaking of that, I mean, this is probably going to bring up a lot of questions in people's minds. So how do they reach out to you if they want to chit chat about this podcast, or especially after the next one? I'm sure there'll be a few more phone calls, but how do they get a hold of you?
Meeting with us face-to-face, you start by checking out the website, www.wealthbydesign4u.com. This is where, we can get to know you and your personal situation. If you'd like to get to know me better and read more of my blogs and podcasts and just hear and get yourself educated, check out Danielle Howard, 4u.com. You can download financial affirmations. We're working on a few other little educational tidbits that should be up and coming real soon.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome, Eric. You have a great continuation of your summer events.
I will, and I look forward to the next podcast. It'll be fun.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. And thank you all for listening to the Wealth Done Differently Retirement Podcast with Danielle Howard. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Danielle comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. And this one is a great one to start these discussions around the table. So thanks again for listening today. For everyone at Wealth Done Differently Retirement, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Wealth Done Differently Retirement Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Wealth by Design, LLC. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Danielle Howard, Certified Financial Planner, is an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer, member FINRA SIPC. Cambridge and Wealth by Design, LLC are not affiliated.